The tap strafing, it needs to be available on all platforms. Simple as that. And I know this change would make someone like Fade cry. G'day guys, today we are going to be going over the biggest problem with Apex Legends. And I know probably the first thing you guys are thinking is I'm going to be sitting here complaining about the new changes and the time to kill, like a bunch of other people you've probably heard the same thing from already. And first things first, that is definitely not Apex's biggest problem, and I actually think it's a step in the right direction, but we'll be going over that later. Now, secondly, you might be thinking, okay, it's Zeus. He's probably talking about all the goddamn cheaters in Apex. And while that is, yes, a massive problem for Apex, it is still not the biggest problem that Apex is currently facing. Now, this video isn't going to be some crybaby rant on how Apex is dying, because while I might get mad and rage about Apex, even the video I made 5 months ago saying I didn't want to play Apex anymore, I said Apex in its core game is just really good. I just got bored. The actual core game of Apex is one of the best shooters of all time. And no matter how many crappy decisions the developers make, that's very unlikely to change. But the real biggest problem with Apex is something I realized after coming back and trying all the new changes. Now, I know a lot of Apex people don't like Call of Duty. The whole reason I'm even a YouTuber is because of Call of Duty. I was #1 in the world on Black Ops 3 for Search and Destroy, and that's how I originally started growing my channel, simply for being #1 on the leaderboards. Now, almost 10 years later, going back to COD, I found I was still really good at it, and I got the world's first legitimate Search and Destroy nuclear. So even though I'm over 30 now, it's not like I'm some washed gamer that sucks at video games. So you might be wondering what all this yapping about. It's not to boost my ego. It's quite the opposite. Coming back to Apex to experience all the new changes, I was goddamn horrible. Apex, without a shadow of a doubt, is one of the, if not the hardest shooters out. It is insanely punishing and insanely difficult to play, even for experienced gamers and even for people that used to be good at Apex. You might find yourself coming back and getting absolutely slammed, even if you're really talented at video games and shooters in general. Now, there's a lot of reasons for this. Kill time, the movement, all the guns recoil. For example, I would pick up the R301, a gun I used to be an absolute laser beam with, and I would choke and miss so many shots simply because I couldn't control the recoil, because it's all muscle memory. Like, you might watch a lot of people on YouTube or Twitch and be like, damn, they're really good at controlling recoil. The actual reality is, it's all just muscle memory. If they stopped playing Apex for a bunch of months and came back, they would be absolutely awful at controlling that gun's recoil because they would have lost that muscle memory. So basically, what I'm getting at with all this yapping is that Apex is just an incredibly punishing game. And I know a lot of you guys, no matter how much you love Apex, you would have gone periods of time going away from the game and coming back and experiencing the exact same thing that I experienced returning to Apex. And that is the insurmountable skill gap that is built up over time. For any game to stay popular and relevant, they need an influx of new players constantly because people get bored. No matter how good Apex is at its core, if you started playing right at the start and just kept on playing throughout every season and grinding your ass off, I guarantee you would hate Apex Legends and you would be bored of it by now. But most people aren't stupid. Unless they're getting paid to play, they'll be dabbling in other games and jumping back and forth onto Apex Legends. And now with how high the skill gap is, the majority of players that are coming back to Apex Legends, I guarantee you are not having fun or enjoying it, even if they're very good at video games. Simply because you have to invest so much time to remain competitive and to do well in Apex. So not only are experienced players getting pushed away, how the heck are new players going to get onto Apex and have fun? We all know the match balancing in Apex is completely garbage. And if you're a good player, you got a bunch of noobs as teammates that always suck. Well, them noobs that are your teammates are having even less fun than you are. They're the ones getting fucking slammed, and you're dying because of it. And all these new players are unable to find Apex enjoyable. The returning old players are unable to find Apex enjoyable. So you see this absolute goddamn landslide, which is Apex's viewer count and player count. In my opinion now, and actually months and months before I quit Apex, was something needed to be done about this. Because the direction they'd been taking Apex for well over a couple of years was very much so in the wrong direction. It all started when they nerfed the Kraber and started sucking off the pro players' peens on Twitter and taking their advice in how to change the game. There was a lot of changes, constant nerfs, and the game became ever increasingly more difficult to play because the guns got worse, the health count went up, and the skill gap just constantly kept increasing. Now that is a great thing if you're a pro Apex player that dedicates their entire life to Apex Legends, but if you're just a normal goddamn human being, you don't want an insurmountable skill gap because you can't dedicate your entire life to Apex Legends in order to remain competitive. That's why I actually think the kill time changes were a good thing. Like, they had to bring it back to where Apex used to be before they nerfed every gun into the ground and increased the health cap. Now, I know a lot of people don't like the change, and I honestly think they implemented it too fast. They buffed every gun, lowered the armor, and got rid of helmets all in one. It would have been much better implemented if it was gradual. But overall, I have been enjoying the direction that Apex is headed. And I know I said Apex Legends was like a landslide with players just decreasing and decreasing, which is true. This season is actually a little bit of a glimmer of hope, because unlike all the other seasons before, which started with less players in the season before, like a constant downwards landslide, this season actually had a higher peak than the season before and seems to be averaging more players than the last season did. Now, this whole biggest problem with Apex being its skill gap, I do personally believe to be one of its biggest problems, but the cheater situation is looming right behind it as one of the biggest enemies to Apex Legends. Now, I haven't played anywhere near as much as some people in this new season, but I've played enough to get to Diamond, and the second I hit Diamond, you guys know what bloody well happened, because it happens to all of you too. It's a cheater fest. Aimbots, wall hacks, macros for no recoil, you name it, you're gonna run into it on Apex Legends. Much more so in the ranked side of things, but no matter what game mode you play, I guarantee you'll experience it regardless of the platform. I probably need to make a whole other video covering that side of things in depth, because there have been a lot of changes since I discussed it last, like the banning of Linux, which I actually do believe did reduce the overall amount of cheaters in Apex, even if it was only by a slight amount. In third world countries, people would actually use that as a means to get revenue by boosting accounts. Even if it was a few cents an hour, they'd still be able to make money using free cheats to boost people. So closing off that loophole, I definitely believe reduced the overall amount of cheating, but nothing to a significant degree. There definitely still needs to be more invested into combating cheating. But in conclusion, this season is a breath of fresh air. I actually think they're taking the right direction. Will they manage to turn the ship around? I don't know, but I hope they do. Because at the core, Apex is a good game. But I can't see myself investing all my time into Apex Legends just to remain at the top. I still enjoy the game, but I'm not going to make it the only game I play ever again. Okay, Zeus from the future, I'm a bit of a dumbass, and I realized I made the entire video without offering a solution to the biggest problem in Apex, and that is the skill gap. And so I'm going to do my best to give a couple ideas that are absolutely going to piss off a lot of people and be very controversial, but I think are guaranteed to be good in the long run for the video game. First things first, the recoil profiles of all the weapons needs to be tuned down and taken down a massive notch. Back in Season 2, you guys might not have played the game, but the R301 had a very consistent and good recoil pattern straight up and slightly to the right. Very easy to control and very easy to learn how to control, which is why it was one of the fan favorites for a very long time. Even after they nerfed it into the ground several thousand times, I think, by Season 20. But that same trend happened with all weapons. They had heaps of horizontal recoil, very difficult to control, and the only people that managed to control them were little virgins on TTB that play the game from 8 to 12 hours per day, or one of the tens of thousands of people that played Apex Legends with strike packs, Zims, or some program to control the recoil for them. You'd be absolutely blown out of your mind if you went on Amazon and see how many people are buying these devices, or how many people on PC are using programs to do the recoil control for them. And that's simply because of the stupid decision at the time by the developers to make everything more difficult for who knows what reason. I absolutely know Twitter would cry about these changes, but the reality is this change would be an absolute W for anyone that has a life outside of Apex or is brand new to the game and learning it. The game needs to be made easier and more accessible to the masses, and that's a fact. Even if you're the nerd that's dedicated tens of thousands of hours to Apex Legends and learning all the recoil patterns, this change would be good for you if it meant that players started coming back to Apex and there's actually people to play against. Because if you don't live in EU or America, you've already noticed that the player base is absolutely smashed into the ground. I can no longer play on my own server in Sydney on PC. I can't even play on the next closest server most of the time, Singapore, which used to be bussin'. I sometimes had to go all the way across the world in order to get an Apex match simply because the player base has fallen off a cliff and there's like almost no people playing Apex compared to what it used to be. It'll eventually get felt in the bigger regions just how dead Apex is becoming, but this change needs to happen and we need to turn the ship around, and this is an absolute essential change in my mind, and it needs to happen, and it needs to happen despite how many people it would piss off, and I will die on that hill. Now the next change I know is going to be twice as controversial, piss off twice as many people, and I actually think it would be a good thing for the game, and that is the movement. The tap strafing needs to be made easier. The mantle sliding needs to be made easier. But not only that, this is the part that's going to piss people off, it needs to be available on all platforms. Simple as that. If you play on controller, if you play on Nintendo, this should be accessible to you. You'd be absolutely blown away if you realized how many people use macros or programs to do their movement for them, or have custom keybinds like the scroll wheel in order to tap strafe for them. That'd be like 99% of PC players. And while the scroll wheel is definitely not cheating, this is a thing that should be made easy and accessible so everyone can do without custom keybinds, because the actual skill gap isn't the movement itself, it's how you implement it in the gameplay. And I know this change would make someone like Fade cry, but the reality is it would make more people interested in his content to see how they can master that movement for themselves. Because even when I could tap strafe on controller on PC, I was never that great at implementing it myself. It's actually not really the movement that's OP, it's how it's implemented and how you use it in engagements that actually matters. And even though mantle sliding is available on all platforms, some people have to cap their frames in order just to do it consistently, and the timing is so minute that you basically need to be a little nerd to get it right most of the time. So making that easier and more accessible to everyone is a W across the board, even if you nail it most of the time already. Being able to do it every time is a W. Now that's it for my 2 suggestions, but I'm sure you guys can come up with some better ideas or some different ideas on what else they can do to make Apex more accessible to the real human beings that have a life outside of the game. Let me know down below, and that is all for today, guys. I hope you somewhat enjoyed, and if you did, consider subscribing. That's all I'm gonna ask for, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, have a wonderful day. Oh my, what did he do? Holy shit, you're the best.